tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
Let us make Africa the tree of life, and of course, Africa is the tree of life. My name is Katom Mkasa. I'm a Ugandan lawyer interested in issues, human rights, issues, development, progress, unity, and of course, critical thinking. Now, we are here on Humans TV Africa, and we want to encourage you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, which is Humans TV Africa. Once you subscribe, you'll be able to get more of our shows, which are very educative, very inspiring, and of course, very, very, very informative. That's why we are here. We intend to change the narrative. We intend to change the way people, especially think about Africa, by giving us the best image that we deserve. We're defining ourselves. We are giving ourselves the right image as a people, especially in Africa, but of course, all of us are Africans. Now, you may write to us at info@humanstvafrica.com, or send us a WhatsApp message, +254 7473 56767. And of course, our communication officer, Brian Kabeko in Kenya, will be able to respond to you and then be able to work with us. We are looking for volunteers who can be working with us. We are a registered non-government organization working in several countries in the world. We have studios in the UK, studios in the USA, and of course, studios in Uganda, Kenya, studios in Nigeria, Ghana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, and we are opening up more studios elsewhere so that you can be able to reach out where you are. Today, we are talking about food, which is the oxygen. Today was actually collected that food shouldn't be a backbone. Food should be the oxygen that we all need, not a backbone actually. Agriculture and food go hand in hand. They are the oxygen that we breathe, and therefore we shall continue reserving this very time to talk about food issues going forward. And of course, this is our episode number 3, where we get food experts to come and share with us issues, food fraud, safety, and consumer responsibility. This is episode 3, and of course, in the studio is my comrade, senior Mr. Kimera, who is with us in the studio. And of course, is an expert on these issues and the discussion. Mr. Kimera, most welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the colleagues on the Humanist TV. It's a great honor to be with you on the 3rd episode.
Thank you, sir, and most welcome, and we are much more honored to have you here for this 3rd segment of our show when we're talking about our oxygen, which is of course food, but of course being infected by fraud looking at safety and consumer responsibility today. Now, in the studio, we have Mr. Bernard Wambale, who is another food expert joining us today. Mr. Wambale, you are most welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mukasa, for hosting us, and greetings to all our viewers out there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wambale. Now, of course, I'm going to allow my panelists today to, of course, give us a bit about themselves. But this time, let me start with Mr. Bernard. Let me start with Mr. Bernard. People viewing us all over the world would like to know who you are. Basically, they know Mr. Kimera right now, but they want to know who is Mr. Bernard and, of course, the NGO you work with and what are you doing there?
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Mukasa and Kimera, for hosting me and also giving me an opportunity to share with colleagues out there. My name is Bernard Wambale. I come from Kasese, the mountains. I'm a mountain guy, so I am a nutritionist, but also a public health expert, and who falls in love with food. And food safety is one of my major areas of focus. Currently working in many capacities, but one, I work with Consent, the Global Consumer Center. I'm actually a deputy to Mr. Chimera Henry that you've always interacted with. I also work with Food Safety Coalition Uganda. I am a deputy coordinator there. So this is a coalition of different actors working on food safety specifically, looking at research on food safety, looking at awareness raising on food safety, looking at advocacy, looking at awareness raising. So those are issues that we deal with. A few days ago, I used also to work with Kabarole Research and Resource Center, managing the food systems there. So basically, that is what I do on my day-to-day. And I think that I'll be building on that as we move on. But that is a short snapshot of who I am. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Wambale, for that very enriching introduction. Of course, he has told us what he does. Remember, we're talking about food. Today, I was lectured. Food is actually corrected. Food actually is the oxygen, not actually the backbone. And cut is our oxygen, and we don't actually give it much time. Now, today, let me go back to senior comrade Mr. Kimera. To give us a recap where we stopped. Remember, this is a continuous conversation. I told you that the agriculture sector is so big that we neglect it. Food is part of it. And consumers are always there every day. So Mr. Kimera is going to give us a recap of what we covered at the last show and then give us a backbone to the next show today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul, and to you all consumers who are listening in. This third episode is going to be quite rich for us because we are going to conjure it with policy, bringing in aspects of consumer responsibility. But to go back, I would like to start by saying that food safety is the security of a country. Where there is no food safety, there is no security in the country. Number two, food is medicine. So a country that has not got nutritious food, safe food, is a sick country. It can't produce. It can't be productive. Number three, quality governance guarantees food. And once food is not safe and its citizens are sick, the quality of governance of any country is questionable. Like Bernard shared, that agriculture is the oxygen. What comes out of agriculture is food, and food is medicine. So it fuels the productivity, it fuels the growth, the sustainability of a country, the resilience of a country. So we should look at food as the foundation Like it is recognized that we put little discussion on quality of food. That means we are putting little discussion on quality of life. So that is something very key that we need to look at. And this is why the third and continuous episode would be to awaken us as political animals, to awaken us as global citizens, to make sure that the food we eat as human beings, the feeds that we feed our animals, all food-producing animals, is at the center of policy, legislation, government expenditure, and it is at the center of financing. We can talk many things, but if we do not guarantee the quality, the safety, the health of the food, then we are wasting time. So as citizens, we need to start thinking about food. Like I said last time, our biggest expenditure of what we earn is spent on food. Food is not only that what we see on the plate. We need to look at food from a systems approach. When we are talking about water, we are talking about food. The quality of water. If the water is of poor quality, it will affect food production. It will affect the quality of production. It will affect the environment from which we grow food. If the trucks that bring food to the markets, brings food to the urban areas, are washed or cleaned with dirty water, then the food will get contaminated. So this is how we should look at food, that every activity, every variable of life has a way it affects food. So Paul and colleagues, and I would like to welcome Bernard, who is a food activist, who is a nutritionist, and who is a food systems student expert on our shows to add value to all that we are discussing. And we call upon consumers not to take these episodes lightly. We are the biggest socioeconomic grouping that decides how businesses operate. If we vote with our wallets, business will collapse. If we vote with our wallets, government will collapse. So governments should listen to us as consumers, and businesses should listen to us as consumers. And we, the consumers, we should be critical so that we make sure that our right to safe, healthy environment is realized. But then we should be responsible to be critically aware, act together, and we work in solidarity to make sure that all these that we aspire for are realized. So thank you very much, colleagues. Empowered consumers have got the power to turn around the abuse and their plight. Thank you.
That's a very good one, where you ended. Empowered consumers have the ability to change the trajectory. Because I know that our producers always capture these catching words and they put them on our platform. You have said two statements. When we vote with our wallets, we can change so much. I think Dennis has captured that. Now, having said that, I want to request the producer to give us that video. And after it, we shall go straight to Mr. Bernard to tell us about consumer safety as he sees it. Then that video on fish getting actually given a different layer. Yes, we need to see it and then we shall continue.
No. Obanyaje okuba dagala? Obukubira ki? Buwadde ki? Munyirire. Kalogera polisi ambo agenda polisi abantu. Waji? Ogera buko alaki? Oyo abugula oyo. Mwo baba.
To me, this is shocking. Mr. Kimera sent me this video today, and it is utterly shocking. I couldn't believe it. I love fish. I tell you, those who know me, don't give me beef, don't give me a chicken, give me fish. I will eat fish anytime of the day of the month. But now you can imagine fish being polished. I never even thought about that. Now, Mr. Bernard Bamba,
Yes, please. Yes, please.
what is it that we are seeing right now, and who is guaranteeing our safety, really, as people in Africa, as people in Uganda, as consumers generally? What do you make of this kind of thing going on in our country?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukasa. You know, there are quite a number of things that we don't know. And there are quite a number of things that our consumers take for granted or lightly. I will start from the perspective of consumer rights. Every consumer, we have about 8 rights of consumers. But just like you asked me, I will focus on the right to safety. Having a right does not mean that now you have to step back and you wait for the right to come to you. We also have consumer responsibilities, that I have to do something to make sure that this right I have comes to realization. So if you look at consumer right number 2, it talks about the safety of the consumer. What that means is that every consumer is having a right. Actually, it's a right, meaning that it's even a constitutional right, that you have to be protected against people who are giving us wrong things. Let us say wrong food, wrong goods, or something that is really fraudulent to the life of a human being. Now, I want to give you many more examples as I discuss this subject. One is that looking at the video we've just shared, we know that if fish is polished, whichever chemical it is, if a chemical is used to treat fish or to polish fish, the consumer is going to eat that fish. They eat a nutrient in the fish alongside the poison that was used, probably that made up the polish. So already you are inconveniencing the life of a consumer, and you're actually against the safety of that consumer, because they are eating a nutrient in fish, but taking it alongside the poison that you've given to them. I just want to give you another scenario. If you go to our schools, in our schools, we've learned that most of the children now in schools are suffering from toxic blood. These are conditions of the blood. If you just got samples of children in schools, you'll learn that most of their blood, it seems a little bit toxic. And we kept on asking ourselves, what is making this toxicity in children's blood? So we are learning that actually many of the schools are using paraffin in preservation of beans.
Wow.
And you know, there is a lot of wrong science. In most of the schools, people think that, okay, when you put a dosage of paraffin in beans and girls consume these beans, then their hysteria levels go down, meaning that they cannot suffer from hysteria diseases. Another thing that, okay, when you put a dosage of paraffin in food, in beans, then the boys, their libido levels will go down. All these are assumptions that are with the schools. We have also seen that in schools, because people want to save on cooking energy, many schools will go and buy, for example, Panadol or paracetamol, and they put it in food so that it cooks very fast. This is not only in schools, we have also seen it for people who prepare, you know, mulokoni in our local language here. So because mulokoni will take you about 6 hours or so to cook, someone gets Panadol, drops it in mulokoni, and cooks for 1 hour. So they are saving on fuel. But of course, remember, when you take a drug and you are not sick, that drug starts creating resistance. And so that's why we start talking about drug resistance or antibiotic resistance. It means a human being has been taking drugs over time and yet they are not sick. So the day you get sick of that particular disease, which must be managed by that treatment cannot be used. The body cannot use it because it's now used to eat. So that situation is what we call now drug resistance. Now, most of the children in schools, or most of us, are actually having drug resistance. You suffer from a disease, you take treatment, and then nothing is happening to you. And then you start claiming that you see that this doctor does not treat well, you know, and yet you're actually eating food, having these treatments, and they're not supposed to be there. While I was still at school, studying, of course, this whole medical stuff and nutrition and whatever, we learn to write badly. Like you never see a doctor who writes well. We are not there. We have to write a little bit so that you don't understand some few things. It's also intentional. It shouldn't be taken that, okay, doctors write badly. No, that is more of bioprotection, protecting a consumer from, wrongdoings. Imagine people are complaining that, okay, now doctors write badly, and so they start reporting us to police for writing, and then most of the doctors started becoming inferior, so they start writing well. Now, because of writing very well on your documents, it has caused trouble. Now, for example, do you realize that these days, people who are stunted out there are now using formalin to treat meat and milk, or even fish?
Wow.
Now, formalin is a drug, public health drug we use in treatment of dead bodies. So like
Yes.
a neighbor has come or your patient dies and then want to treat the body. The doctor will ask you, a pathologist, when are you burying this person? And he say, okay, we are burying in 5 days time. So we give a treatment of formalin depending on the timing of burial, so that you keep the person safe and the person is not rotting or smelling or whatever until the burial time. Now, people, because of the doctors loving to write well, people have even learned what we use to treat dead bodies. And so they go to a pharmacy and they buy formalin and they put it in meat or beef, in milk and other food items. Now, all that is against the safety of the person who's going to eat that food. Whereas a nutritionist will be saying, okay, please, you have to take a glass of milk, eat meat and whatever for nutrients. But then if a consumer took meat or beef with formalin in it, that person is going to take a nutrient plus a chemical. Unfortunately, the body cannot compete to take a nutrient at the expense of a chemical. So you realize that now chemicals go into our liver and the liver becomes dysfunctional and the person goes into cancer, into renal disease, into kidney disease. All those come because of poor management of food, giving people chemicals that are not supposed to be consumed. And all that is against the right to safety of the consumer, because you're giving someone food plus a poison. So in other words, you're killing a human being. If you just looked at our current situation, of course, looking at fraud in food, you can imagine the chemicals, the tar that we use in making tarmac roads, for example, tarmac roads. I was watching episode 1 from Henry sharing with us how people go and dry food on tarmac roads. Now, it is not really about putting food on tarmac, but it's about the tarmac will melt. I want to give the viewers an example. When you're traveling, let us say from Kampala to Mbale, on a hot day, you will see in front of you, if you're in a car, in front of you, you see what they call mirage. Like the tarmac is shining.
Yes.
Meaning that the tarmac has been heat to an extent that it's actually even bringing out vapor. Now, for you, because you are stunted in the brain, you have put food on a tarmac, which is actually melting on a sunny day, and for you are claiming that, okay, my maize will dry faster. But then it dries faster and absorbs the tar, which is a chemical, very dangerous chemical that was used to make the road. So at the end of the day, the consumer takes in food that would be nutritious, but actually unsafe. And that's why we say that anything which is not safe, it is not food. It is actually poison. So if you took maize, which has been dried on a tarmac road, it ceases to be maize, it ceases to be food. It is something else. We have seen people getting maize and they put it on top of iron sheets. These are rusted iron sheets, and you know the effect of rust to human beings. So all these practices, actually, they put us at crossroads. You need to save the consumer because the consumer has to eat safer food, but for you are putting unsafe compounds in the food of humans. And that is very, very dangerous. And so we are not protecting. So meaning that you and I who are consuming this food, if I found food with formalin, it is my responsibility that since I have known, I have to take social concern and I go and report the case. Now the question is, where do I report it? Now that's where always the issue is. We need to look at other scenarios. If you go to town, you're going to have a meal and your doctor is telling you, please make sure you eat nutritious food. Well, you go to a restaurant and then you find hooligans cooking our food in polythene bags. Maybe
Yes.
I need to bring the viewers to the science. You know, these things, they match well with science. You know, a polythene bag. Anyway, let me take you a little bit to the chemistry. We have chemical compounds called thins. So when you put a thin plus another thin and you make a chain of thins, maybe let us say about 1,000 thins, you make multiple of them. So you make a chain of thins. Now, just like we have polygamy, now in chemistry, we call it, you have made polythenes. A chain of thins is called polythene.
Okay.
So just like, you know, polygamy, many women, many men. So here in science now, if you have thins, we are talking about a chain of thins is called polythenes. So poly means many. Thin means that chemical I talked about. So when you say polythene, you're talking about many things. Now, these thins are dangerous chemical compounds. Now, because you've made a long chain of those thins, you can decide to make it any shape you want. If you decide to make it a bag, it becomes a polythene bag.
Wow.
I hope you see now the science. Now, what happens is that all the thins become unstable on heat. So if I made a chain of polythenes and I put that chain on heat, the thins start breaking away and they become independent thins. Now, that is what exactly happens when you cook food in a polythene bag. Now, you're putting this meat or food, whatever, on fire at about 100 degrees, and the thins start breaking away from the polythene bag. And where they go, of course, they go into the food that you are hosting it in. Now, a poor consumer comes and starts eating food, which is maybe kosher, but then taking it along the thins which moved away from the polythene bag during the food preparation. So you see that we are killing humanity, and that's why the cancer rates are increasing as compared to the previous days. Now the question would be, what is the logic? We are eating a lot of polythenes now in the form of microplastics, which used not to be the case in the olden days, because in the olden days, the elders would actually get banana leaves and use them to wrap their food. For you, you are now using polythene bags, which are actually made of thins. You see, even they have told us it's a polythene, meaning that there is a thin, and we know that a thin is a chemical compound.
Yes.
So we are feeding humanity on thins through cooking food in polythene bags. You see, a consumer who is not serious, you go and see someone selling you food, but they are serving it from a kavera. This is what you're talking about. When you see a person giving you food and they are serving it from a kavera, which is even on a heat source, please refuse it. And actually, that's why we have a consumer responsibility, actually, number 1, which talks about critical awareness. The consumer must be aware. The moment I see food being served from a kavera, then I should run away. Go and buy this food from another source. This is your money. We are talking about your money. Why should you buy food of 3,000 and you go and spend 3 million in a hospital treating a cancer that came from a thin? This is now what we are holding now, critical awareness. Are our consumers aware of these things? If, for example, I go to a Chikommando guy and I say, okay, make me chapati Chikommando, and you see the guy making Chikommando, but he's using a wrong towel. The towel is dirty. It was last washed, I think, 3 months or 4 months ago. Leave it, don't buy it, move to another. Because you're going to buy Chikommando at 2,000 at the expense of life that you're going to treat in Mulago for 6 months and you spend 1 billion. So in terms of critical awareness, we haven't labored to say that, okay, one of our standards, you must label the food. Everyone who is dealing with the food industry, they must label food. But then when they label food, they will put instructions. It is up to you, the consumer, to read those instructions. Why should you buy expired food? The other time I was I was sharing with Henry, I bought bread and the bread had a date of 35th. You can imagine the date, 35th of June, 2023. So I asked Henry, when did the calendar change in Uganda that you can have a date of 35th of June? I said, which kind of madness is this? Now that one, it is me, because I have critical awareness as a consumer, that I was able to identify a date of 35th of June on a food product. Now, what about other consumers? Are we interested even in knowing what that expiry date is, when that expiry date would be? The other time, I bought a bottle of beer and had an expiry date. It had expired 4 months ago. So I went back to the owner of the bar and I told him, my brother, now you give me another. This one is expired. And he's like, no, but beer never expires. I showed him the expiry date. It was on the bottle. So are our consumers interested in even knowing the labels on the beer, on the water, on, all
Yes.
this is about protecting you. We have put up standards that please, when you're making this, you must label it, you must indicate the expiry date, you must indicate the name, we have given those details to the manufacturers and they have tried to adhere, but the consumers are not interested. You go and buy water and the water expired 4 months ago and the consumer is busy taking the water, which is expired. So when you're talking about consumer safety, you must be safe, but also you have a responsibility to make sure that that safety comes in handy. We have seen people buy, expired food and it's okay. They go home with expired goods and no one is interested to know that this is expired, only to realize they opened bread and it was expired. It has already started developing mold. Why did you buy it in the first place from the market or supermarket before you read the labels? This is critical awareness. Whereas the manufacturer has put a label to inform you, it is your responsibility to read it and understand it. So when you're talking to consumers, these are things that they look obvious, but people don't take interest in them. If, for example, you have had a few months ago that Kenya rejected our maize, and shortly after Kenya rejecting our maize, Southern Sudan also rejected our maize because of aflatoxins. Now, what are these aflatoxins? Where do they come from? Because there was a mismatch.
Yes, Mr. Bernard. Aflatoxins, that's where we are so far. And really, I've enjoyed this show. I don't know how my viewers are enjoying it, but I should tell you, I've learned in the last few minutes of Mr. Bernard talking, and I've enjoyed it. If Mr. Bernard is back online, remember, this is an online TV station, and of course, we are live. We are going back to him to explain to us more, and then we shall go back to Mr. Kimera. Mr. Bernard, if you are back, I then should usher you back, and then you continue telling us about our responsibilities as consumers. Remember, he has taught us that there are things we don't do as consumers. Mr. Bernard, if you are back, please continue with your discussion.
Okay, so I was giving us another example, aflatoxins. We have heard that our maize is rejected from different countries with aflatoxins. Aflatoxins come from the way we are handling food. How do we store maize? How do we store cassava? And so when we have wrong mechanisms of storage, the food starts getting these molds, and so eventually you have aflatoxins. Now, aflatoxins can only be destroyed. Okay, the starting point, when you have a temperature of 30 degrees, which you can never get in the kitchen, which you can never see anywhere, unless, I don't know, that is the starting point of starting to think that you can break an aflatoxin. Now, most of our people are eating food full of aflatoxins. Now, when the food was rejected at the border of Kenya, the question I've always asked, where did it go? Because we have never had government banning this food. The question is, where did it go? Did it come back to the market, or was it banned somewhere? All that is food fraud. If the government of Kenya realizes that our food does not meet the standard and they push it back to Uganda, the Ugandan government should not put it back to the market. It means that food is supposed to be banned so that the consumers don't have access to it and eat it, because when they eat it, they're going to have their aflatoxins consumed, and that is already a risk factor to cancer. So the question here would be, why would then the rejected food come back to the market? It means that we are not protecting the consumers who are actually going to partake of that food. And whose role is it? Government has a hand to play in this, in protecting the consumers, because that is a mandate in the Constitution. If you read chapter 22 of the Constitution, you'll get this. The government is responsible for providing safe and nutritious food to its society or to its citizens. So why would food be rejected from another border and returns back to the market? Why would that be? We have also seen, of course, now I try to merge food fraud and the awareness. Look at the Public Health Act, meat that is supposed to be consumed by human beings is supposed to be inspected by a government official. And government is paying people to inspect this meat. These guys are at the district, and every sub-county is supposed to have an extension person, a veterinary officer who is supposed to inspect meat. And after inspecting, they must put something to identify that meat that actually has been seen by the authority, which in many cases is a stamp. So as a consumer, when I go to buy meat and I don't see a stamp on it, then the assumption is that that meat was not inspected. However, we have also learned that currently, I don't know what is not happening with society. Now, the people who are supposed to be inspecting this meat have become victims of giving the stamps to the ordinary people in the community. Someone is a P3 dropout, but is having a stamp because he's the one at the slaughterhouse, he's the one who slaughters these animals. And if the inspector is not going to be there tomorrow, or the inspector, they have a way they connive, they say, okay, for me, my daily whatever is 60,000. So the cows will be slaughtered and all of them have stamps, but they were inspected by a P3 dropout. So you ask yourself, who is fooling who? Who is fooling who? This is all food fraud. Actually, all these guys who are doing veterinary services, who are inspecting our meat, and they are doing this kind of act, they are all against the safety of the consumer, and actually, they must be arrested as yesterday. All these boys must be in cells. Do we risk the life of a person because 10,000, so a stamp can be dropped on meat anytime by P3 or P2 dropout? All of this is food. So there is on maybe transportation of animals because maybe there is a disease, a mouth and foot disease, or maybe there is drugs. And someone continues to the consumer. So you see people getting sick because why would people get if the inspector had checked that animal that see sometimes we keep it has a if anthrax disease already 5 or 10 or how many people are sick, the question would be the meat they consumed, was it not inspected? Because if it will be harm that has been buried. That is the policy. That is of diseases. Food fraud, left, right, center. But I think government has to play a hand in regulation of their staff, in regulation of food business, in regulation of transportation of food and export of food or importation of food. Otherwise, we shall have a challenge. If you look at our extension workers in the communities there, are they advising society on when the withdrawal period is? A person injects an animal today, and in the evening they want meat or milk from such an animal. What are we doing? It means that you are doing a suicidal mission of killing people indirectly. If you go back to our districts, there are people who are responsible for community awareness, the agriculture officers, extension workers. Why would people die because of
Yes, Mr. Bambale, they are giving us a lot of information. Thank you so much, Mr. Bambale. Of course, we're going to come back with Mr. Kimera. Let me just make a few comments. Really, I've liked it. In the comments here, someone was asking me, what is Molokonyi? Molokonyi is cloven hoof. That, in simple terms, the feet of a cow is called a cloven hoof. I think my English is correct. So that is it. So we get it and we cook it and we eat it. People love it in Africa, and many societies really enjoy it. Now, having said that, Mr. Bernard educated us. In fact, me, I was learning, I should say. There are things I don't know because I'm not even a scientist. My science is very limited. I'm more of self-taught. The science I know is a circuit. Now, we talked about aflatoxins, we talked about Bemarine, I know that I've been hearing it on TV. I know that actually the drugs used to keep dead bodies known to smell are used on our meat. I've been seeing a bit of raids in Uganda where butchers sometimes are raided. But again, these campaigns are short-lived, Mr. Kimera. They are short-lived because you can see this campaign twice in a year, sometimes once in a year. I come from Rengo. Where we are called the cattle corridor. I come from the cattle keepers, partly. Our district is called part of the cattle corridor. Now, our people slaughter their animals on a daily, and I've never seen and inspected my village. To be honest with everyone, I've never seen an inspector in my village. I'm almost 50 years in my village. People slaughter their meat and put their meat on the butcher. Whether it was sick, who knows? Now, at the end of the day, we are learning this thing. But one, even as consumers are weak. But can I say we are ignorant because we don't know our rights? Or we don't know what's going on? Or can I say that those who are supposed to teach us are not doing their work? For example, you have talked about food. I've seen people in my village, people near the road, the tarmac road, putting cassava on the road. When you go to Mbarara, you come from Kasese, when you go that road, people put their cassava on the road. And I've explained how dangerous it is. And to be honest with you, I had never taken time to think about it. That actually this tarmac, because I know tar is bad. Tarmac is made from that kind of thing. I know it's bad, but I never even thought about the implication of putting it on that tar, and then this cassava dried is pounded and we eat. Lastly, many of us are victims of cancer. My father died of cancer, and we have a cancer history in my family. I should say that. So many of us are victims of cancer, but I think that partly we are responsible for these cancers. Mr. Kimera, to me this is sad because I saw how cancer treated my father badly. I've seen cancer patients. Maybe some of us are going to be victims, but to me these are things we worry about. Yet we continue dying, and the biggest budget of the government goes, maybe not the government, but the biggest budget of individuals goes on medication. Let me leave the government out. Us, we treat ourselves, we sell our properties, we treat ourselves. When my father was dying in Zambia hospital, we had to pay 11 millions for a dead body. For a dead body, it's on record. 17th March 2017, Zambia hospital, 11 millions to get a dead body out. A man who had cancer, a man who was operated on the time they knew he had cancer, and he never made it out of the theater. But we now appreciate how cancers come. I was working in Kampala. I should confess to you, I used to eat food I see is Neapolitan from our market. For me, I eat in the slums. I've been a very local person. I don't deny that. I never go to Sheraton. I don't have that kind of luxury. I go to Chivulu. I go to where all these local people. I eat from their stalls. But I see food coming from the polythene bags. And we eat this food. I'm confessing this. It's stupidity, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
But I've eaten this food from the polythene bag. So these are issues, even as the so-called educated actually ignore. And these are very important issues. Now, Mr. Kimera, me, I've made my confession. It's a very, very stupid confession. I've been eating these foods, and that's it. And what I'm saying, bottom line, we need an education. But how are you going to help us? Mr. Kimera, how are we going to help these consumers in Rengo? Be aware.
Thank you very much, Paul. And in addition to my linkage with you, I also come from Rengo district. So now, now what you have just said is these are things that we find on a daily basis. If you remember, Chawagonya used to be a big market for livestock, so forth. So, but if I'm to go back, what do we need to do? First, like Bernard talked about the Constitution, it is the duty bearer's obligation. It is any sitting government or any sitting state, once you are voted into government, it is quality governance to make sure the quality of life of your citizens the consumers is taken care of. So we should have a consumer-based approach towards government systems. The agri-food system should be consumer-based approach, and that is safety, quality of life of consumers. Number two, this is where we are going to continuously advocate and do such episodes to awaken every consumer to be a campaigner. We should now campaign to see that the manifestos of the political parties have got food safety on their agenda. The other aspect, to make sure that policy, investment in food quality infrastructure, food infrastructure, coordination, inspection, research, awareness has got enough investment. Number 3 or 4, street vended foods are not a crime. Street vended foods globally, this is where consumers find access, affordable and available food. So it was not a crime, the confession you did, because due to your income bracket, that is where you go, you can afford. And that food at local government, they should make sure that street vended food or low cost food is of good quality. And this is how improving the life of people. We are doing this in Mbale. So I would like to conclude by saying that empowered consumers can be a game changer for a rights-based food system, and making sure that at every stage, consumers speak out and make a change. So food fraud, safety, unsafe food threatens our right to food, threatens our health. You consume safe food, we'll have less tragedies. And like I say, food is medicine. Food is health care. So we will need, as consumers, to consume from a healthy environment. We will need to be with social concern as we are consuming, to make sure that the environment from which we consume our food, we advocate it, starting with our local government leaders, both political and technical, up to the national level. So, Paul, it is a tragedy that we have all living examples that affect our family members who have ended up dying due to low investment in the food systems, making sure that our food is safe. Food inspection is mainly done at the local government, but how much money do local governments put in their budgets to do food inspection, both in community villages, both in community markets, up to regional markets? We are doing work in Mbale markets. Bernard is doing work in Fort Portal. We would like to do the same work in the central region to make sure that whatever food is produced, the environment in which it is produced, consumed, sold, is safe, to make the food safe. Talking about drying food on the tarmac roads, this is where lead comes into food. Lead is very toxic. These are part of the heavy metals. So you'll find that standard stock of parameters, we are part of the standard development community as members of the technical committees in food and agriculture, in environment, with and chemicals. These are some of the areas when we tell the local communities that you're drying, the food is absorbing petroleum products which are poisonous. These are issues that we need. Now, if you take Mubende going to Fort Portal, you take Kayunga Road going to Njeru, you'll find that maize is dried on the tarmac. And this the other day I was telling colleagues that road safety and food safety are one and the same. So it is very key that local governments play their role to make sure food, and even the National Road Authority, so that food is not dried on the roadsides. The roadsides are meant for pedestrian walks. But imagine a car fails and goes onto the roadside which has got maize. It will even skid off because maize will be slippery. Motorbikes. Now, the consumers have to walk on the road, which is making road safety more difficult because where they are supposed to walk from has become a drying area for foodstuff. So these are issues that we will need to talk about to make businesses better, to make consumer health and quality life better by getting the policy colleagues to think and start looking from a systems approach. What affects one aspect will affect the other. So social concern is very key. If we were thinking road safety was all about driving, but road safety is also key by ensuring food safety by not drying food on the tarmac. So Paul, this is how today we have talked about food safety, and we would like to say that food fraud, if policies are not implemented by a sitting government or a sitting state, that is food fraud. If governance is not effective to make sure the food that we are getting consumers isn't counterfeited, isn't substandard, isn't of poor quality, that is political fraud. Failing the citizens who voted you into government, failing businesses to do correct, the first responsibility of health of a citizen is a government taking care of the health security of its citizens. There is no security in a government if food is not safe. So that is what I would like to stop with today. And colleagues, it's a great honor, and I look forward to rubbing shoulders with you in the 4th episode. If it need be, Paul, now that we are coming from the same district, we might end up not being even brothers, relatives, because I also come from the cattle corridor. Then we need to continuously, on the Humanist TV, educate consumers until they wake up. Educate the policymakers until they do food governance in the right manner so that the food environment is safe for the consumers and guarantees food safety culture and quality culture. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm very proud of you. I'm smiling from ear to ear. You mentioned Chawagonya, that was my market. We come from the same place. Now, having said that, we are people of the cows who eat cows the way they come in the market, don't even care whether they have been inspected or not. And those are the problems. Now, really, there are so many things I've learned today, and I'll say that we are going to have these series on Saturdays so that we handle aspect by aspect. For example, how do we spoil our food as farmers? We need to have those images, and people know that when you add A, B, C, D on your crops, you are affecting the quality and you're affecting your life. So these shows are going to be continuous, but in a small doses, so people can understand. We have a colleague here, a buyer in Kenya. His role is to segment our shows and cut them into units, which can be shared on WhatsApp, shared on TikTok. So we want to get those small units that we break our 1 hour show into segments that can be easily shared across different platforms. But we are going to be here because this is a big subject, and we handle aspect by aspect. Teach a farmer how to take care of the crops, for example, how to dry them. Let me tell you, in my village, I grew up seeing people drying their maize and cassava on the roofs, for example, on the roofs of the houses, and asbestos and all that stuff. And tomorrow we are sick. So let us hear from our brother Bwambale. In your conclusion, find a way to wrap it up for today. You are parting short, and then we shall be back next Saturday for another episode. Bwambale, back to you now.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I am very glad that I was part of this discussion. Of course, there are quite a number of things that we have to share, but I think, as Henry says, the government has to play its part, and us consumers must play our part. As people who have the mandate to support communities, understand these things, we also have to do our part and sensitize communities. I know that this subject looks a little bit new, but I think we need to do our very, very best to reach out to the communities to understand these aspects. I just wanted to conclude with something very small that I just remembered a little bit, and it might have been also in Ruengo, where you guys come from. I don't know whether you realize that in our communities down there, you have a shop, a saloon, a restaurant, and a welding site in the same place.
Yes.
That is a food safety issue. So hair can come from a saloon and flies off to food, but also you have a welding place. The guy is welding his metal, and there is a restaurant next, and you see consumers are enjoying food, and you wonder which kind of consumers these are. So in terms of food safety, we have a lot of things that we need to discuss with communities, just to understand how we die slowly. These aspects will not kill you today, but they will kill you slowly but very sure. So I think with the communities, we need to do a lot of work and touch base with each one of us. And the truth is that food safety, if you went to hospitals, almost half of the people who are in the hospital, if not 70% of them, would be having a foodborne disease coming from food safety issues. So let us keep learning. Let us also learn to unlearn certain things. There are things that community members know, but they are not true. So we need to unlearn those ones and relearn new things that can help us move forward. So I want to appreciate you for the opportunity and the time you've granted to us to really share these insights with our communities. We shall be always available to teach our people about the subject of food. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Bwambale. Thank you so much, Senior Comrade Kimera Henry, for giving us the time, making the show, and of course, for us being there on time. We are proud of you. You are making a contribution to us. Me, I'm learning. There's my friend called Paul Iwan in London, an Englishman who watches these shows and tells me he doesn't want to miss any episode. And of course, there are many others who are watching because they are learning in a way. And many of them are making a contribution in their own small ways. Now, we are going to be having you back on Saturday. We shall be having another segment we handle. Let us handle these issues one by one. We get one segment, we explain it properly with images that we can, if you break it down into a TikTok show or whatever it is, people can grasp it. This is how we are going to save our people. Slowly by slowly, handling one issue after another, pesticides, farming, food preservation, the arrangement of the area where you serve food. For example, I didn't know, and we are right, that actually getting a holding guide next door and a salon next door is a bad thing. But the question is, where is our government? The lawyer is going to tell you, we are the government. You and me are the government.
Who issued the license?
But again, someone is going to tell you, who is giving the license? What are you doing about it? So thank you so much for being a good audience. And thank you so much for being the best panelists I have on this subject. We shall be back next Saturday. Tune in and watch this guy is giving us insights on food security, safety, and fraud in the world. Thank you so much. See you in the next show. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja. pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi bwana na binti